Greetings and welcome to Flanagan's Ecologic. I am your host, Ted Flanagan. And today I've got Dr. Jon Creyts on the podcast. Delighted to have Dr. Jon Creyts on the podcast. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the Rocky Mountain Institute. Jon is an internationally recognized leader on global energy issues and climate change. He joined RMI in 2012. He served as the Chief Program Officer in a decade where RMI grew by a factor of 10. He's been the CEO since 2022. Jon, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Ted. So excited to be here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, good. Well, I appreciate your taking the time to do so. And soft pitch, first question, where are you sitting as we speak? Are you in Colorado?
I am. It's a rare moment, but I'm here in Colorado for the fall colors. I'm actually in our innovation center, which you've been to as well, which is just an amazing building, really designed to showcase what you can do with smart integrative design. And it's a building that literally it sails on the sun. It has no heating or air conditioning in it. It uses the sun here coming in a super insulated structure to really create a building that is net positive in the end. We produce more energy from the solar cells on the roof than we actually consume, and it's kind of for us, it's an emblem of what we can do to economically and resiliently solve issues like climate change and energy security and all the other, kind of intertwined Gordian knot of energy here in one svelte package.
And also high in the Rocky Mountains, right? Which is not a warm place in the winter, I must say.
No, that's exactly right. It's the most energy efficient building in the highest, coldest climate zone in the United States.
Fantastic.
And it's all done with off the shelf technology. So,
want to talk big picture in a second, but I always like to sort of dig in. What is your focus this week? What has been sort of hot on your calendar this week?
Well, a little bit of a sigh there, Ted. You've got me on a week. I'm actually dealing with some of the fallout from last week. Has been a big issue for me. On last Friday, the International Maritime Organization was set to vote on actually putting in place a global fee on fuels to send a long-term signal to the shipping market about carbon intensity of those fuels. And what had been worked on for 3 years as an agreement, to put in place a long-term regulation that sent a clear signal to everyone on the types of technologies they should be using going forward, suddenly became a geopolitical flashpoint. And the countries all walked away without a deal. And so the shipping industry and fuel suppliers and folks who are investing in new, kind of lower carbon technologies, things like green ammonia for shipping. I've been on the phone with all of them this week trying to sort out where do we go from here? How do we think about, kind of realigning everybody's interests and making sure that over the next year we get to a point where a clearer signal can be given to everybody with full support of all the constituencies there.
2 steps forward, 2 steps back.
Well, I have to say, in this particular case, it was exciting because there was global alignment there, and everything fell apart so quickly at the end that it surprised folks. And there are so many intertwined industries here because, there were folks thinking about how do we create these new green ammonia based fuel platforms that also, when you build those, you also create the economics to do things like create green fertilizer alongside. And so different countries, different companies were all looking at this as new opportunity. And now they've got to postpone their plans, right?
It's not a smooth trajectory towards a carbon-free future. Jon, in your 15 years at RMI, What are you most proud of? I know the organization grew by 10x, and your influence is terrific. Um, and I know that the national and global outreach is absolutely impressive. But what gives you the most pride in your position?
It is, I mean, RMI is a truly global institution right now, and I am
Yeah.
just continuously amazed by the change that we produce all around the world. We're
Yeah.
operating in over 50 countries as it stands. And just over the last few weeks, we've launched the Sustainable Concrete Buyers Alliance here in the United States alongside Amazon and Prologis, Meta, a bunch of other companies. We conducted a heavy duty truck fleet, kind of uh, uh, pilot alongside 13 different fleets that
Mhm.
were all kind of demonstrating new electrified drivetrains or new fuel cell drivetrains or new super efficient biofuel drivetrains, and had them working for a month long trying to understand what are the true economics of this.
Mm.
We had folks over in India that are working alongside Varanasi, which is one of the large cities there, where we've had just an amazing uptake on a rooftop solar pilot that we're now spreading to 100 solar cities across the country. We've been working in China on issues around green steel standards and how buyers like Volvo and Mercedes and BMW can get low carbon steel. And even in Africa here, we just launched a joint effort alongside MasterCard and the Global Energy Alliance for People and the Planet, which is a large consortium group, a set of activities really focused on electrifying agriculture that we think over the next 2 years is going to lead to 5,000 new jobs, primarily for women in Nigeria. And it's amazing the breadth of things that come across my plate, the number of ways that RMI is reaching out and not just advancing the energy transition, but making the world better in the process and meeting people where they are. That's what excites me. That's what I'm most proud of.
Well, you deserve to be hugely proud. And you know this, I was the first energy program director at RMI in 1986. I think there was about 12 of us. And I don't think any of us could have ever imagined that RMI would have grown to this prominence in the world, thanks to you. And I think there's been, what, 3,000 or 4,000 employees over the past 40 years.
Indeed. But it's built on the strong foundation that
Yeah.
you and others created. And I will say, some of the founding principles around integrative design, the notion of efficiency first, kind of our ability to really tap into whole systems thinking and engage networks of people from all different angles, was very much, it's been part of RMI's ethic since the beginning. And it's something that we look to, especially applied hope. Applied hope at moments like this can't be understated. The notion that with, by putting a little bit of muscle into making things happen and willing them into existence, we actually create that hope in the end, and that process of uniting others that makes a world worth being hopeful for in the first place.
Yeah. Jon, how many staff do you have now? I mean, when you list off all these global programs and activities, it's, oh my gosh, how do you choose what to focus on? But how many people do you have to carry out this work?
Yeah, we have about 650 people that are RMI direct employees, but obviously we work in a broad network of collaborators. And, we very much believe that market-based change is the fastest, most powerful way to drive change. And so we have collaborators in the private sector, but also throughout the public sector and governments, communities around the world. And so it's a team effort through and through.
And Amory Lovins, who's obviously the founder with Hunter, his wife at the time, is still in the picture. I see him in a lot of your promotional materials and leading different webinars and things like that. Is he at the root of that notion of applied hope?
Amory, well, he founded the term, and he's very much the champion. I think we all draw inspiration from Amory. Uh, it's remarkable the impact that he's had on the world and on this institution. As its co-founder. And he's unstoppable here, I will say. In his late 70s, he is not slow to step. I know for those who are lucky enough to take his classes, he's teaching half-time at Stanford, and on top of continuing a role with our board and maintaining regular contact with the Institute here.
He's just an amazing guy. He's just certainly my most important mentor, somebody I respect so much, and he's just a very kind and caring individual. You and I saw each other, I guess it was in August, at the Innovation Center where you are right now. And we were talking, we each had a chance to present to, I can't remember what the group was, but you really presented a perspective of what's happening globally. Obviously, we've got the Trump administration that is doing everything, it seems like doing everything it can to retard our path to a carbon-free future. But you presented, I thought, a very optimistic view that the rest of the world is in fact charging forward. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, this is where RMI, very much grounded in the facts, and we've got to put the noise aside right now and recognize that at this moment, 80% of the world is moving very rapidly toward a clean energy future. The geopolitical tensions are real, but they haven't derailed what is a transformation that's already underway. And we can certainly look and say, yes, this transformation is being led by China, and we'd be right to kind of showcase that. They're literally putting in about 3 gigawatts of solar a day right now. Over half their new cars that they're selling every day are electric. And just this summer, by our analysis, and it corroborated alongside by Chinese government statistics, it looks like they've peaked their carbon emissions here. So they've showcased how to kind of decouple economic growth from carbon usage, which is quite amazing. But it's not just China, right? You look at it, and India now, half of its power capacity is coming from clean sources, and 93% of its new investment is flowing into clean energy. Australia, right? More than 30%, almost 40% of the homes in Australia now have solar on their roofs, right? And they're on track to likely double that within the next 5 years. And it's not just these countries, right? We can rattle off Vietnam or the Philippines or Brazil or Egypt or Mexico. Every country right now is surging in terms of its overall, transition here. And we are seeing, again, 80% of the world really unlocking the economic opportunity here at scale.
So what do you say to us Americans? Many of us are very discouraged about the current administration in terms of the environment, in the environmental direction that we're going. What do you say to Americans?
I mean, I would say the economics are real, right? They're compelling, and they're moving forward in other parts of the world. I might even quote, Winston Churchill, that the U.S. ultimately will make the right decision after exhausting all other options. But we are seeing very real some tension here around the transition from, a fossil-based economy to a more renewable electron-based economy. And that's some of the geopolitics that are being unlocked here are, the relative economics of different players that have different historical and legacy, kind of economies and influence in these different spheres. And I don't expect this to resolve itself very quickly. It's going to be messy for a while as we go through the transition. And there are going to be more hybrid solutions than we can imagine. And yes, there are going to be innovations on things like carbon capture and storage, et cetera, that also help us use, kind of fossil fuels and mitigate some of the damage that they caused on the warming side as well. but it is, we're feeling that in a very visceral, real way here in the United States right now.
It is messy, isn't it? It's a messy transition that we're going through.
For sure. But
excuse me.
It's also happening very quickly. And I think that is what has surprised many. And when we look at the scale of the transformation underway, right now we're seeing almost $2 trillion a year, or over $2 trillion a year invested in clean energy, and less than half that amount invested in legacy fossil systems. And that kind of has surprised markets. It's surprised, everyone at the speed and scale that it is happening. And I think that's where folks should draw the biggest hope. Is that, this is a transformation that's being driven by smart economics here going forward. And the politics will happen, and there are reasons that the politics are happening, and there are things that we can do to mitigate and manage around that. But the long-term arc of history is going to bend toward, efficiency, renewables, and ultimately sustainability here. And we're seeing that come through very clearly.
RMI is known for its deep dives into technologies. I mean, you mentioned market-based solutions, absolutely. But this notion of finding innovative technologies and supporting them and figuring out how to scale them. When we were together in Basalt back in August, you were talking about a new sort of a roof coating. I don't know whether it's a paint or what you would call it, but can you talk about that as an example of the kind of thing that RMI can get behind and put its muscle into and put its ingenuity into to get it into the marketplace?
Yeah, this is one of those exciting and nerdy, kind of technology things here, Ted, that RMI is constantly scoping for. And about 6 or 7 years ago, we got heavily involved in cooling, recognizing that we've got about a half a degree of global warming is going to be caused directly by the air conditioners that we're using in order to cool ourselves in a warming planet. So we get in this crazy cycle of actually making the problem worse as we try to address it.
Yeah.
And at that time, we helped identify ways to dramatically improve the efficiency of window air conditioners. And we ran a global cooling prize that actually produced 2 new designs that had more than 5-fold more efficient production of cooling relative to the energy they consume, that are now being mass produced and used around the world by 2 of the largest suppliers or OEMs there. We've continued to search for ways that we can innovatively cool. And one of the physics tricks that we can use isn't just using a reflective paint, right? But actually using a coating that takes energy and emits it into outer space. And this sounds kind of science fiction, but the fact is that our atmosphere is very good at containing heat in certain wavelengths, and it's actually transparent to heat in other wavelengths. And if we can design materials that emit at those wavelengths where it's transparent to, we can send energy back to outer space. And we can actually send it very fast, very quickly, that goes not at a linear rate, but at a 5th power rate against the difference in temperature between outer space and whatever it is that's here on the planet. That's a lot of physics there.
Well, that's fascinating. Are these really short wavelengths then?
They're long wavelengths.
They're long wavelengths.
Dealing with. Yeah, it's in the infrared spectrum that we're looking at, and they're called passive daytime radiative cooling. Kind of coatings. We actually have a long history with them. They're used for all different technologies. As an airplane designer early in my career, we would use them in order to minimize the infrared signature of military aircraft, so that things like a $10,000 heat-seeking missile couldn't take down a $250 million airplane. And so we've got this ability, and we need to make it cheap. And when we do that, we can actually turn every rooftop, in the world into a non-mechanical air conditioner, basically. And so we're experimenting with this right now in India, in Ahmedabad, where we've got a number of vendors that we've set up, and we've instrumented and are testing, and we've seen that this is reducing the overall temperatures inside, houses and informal settlements by 5 and more degrees, which is huge in the ability for folks that can't pay for air conditioning or don't have power connections to actually stay cool in what is increasingly environments that will be lethally hot, right?
Right. Now, John, is it actually just applied like a paint?
It's applied just like a paint, right? And it's all about the chemistry and the formulation of it.
So it's simple to apply, and then I take it that it's just the cost that's the barrier.
That's exactly right. So how do we drive down the cost? And of course, part of that is scale, but part of that's also being smart about what the chemical additives are that allow us to get to that proper wavelength of emission, right?
And so who might subsidize that? I mean, it's got a it's got a benefit to the homeowner or to the building itself, but then it's got the societal benefit of reducing urban heat island effects and reducing the amount of heating of the planet, right?
Well, this is the great thing, right? Is that it doesn't, yes, subsidies and incentives will help, but there is a natural market here. And there are about 20 companies around the world that are starting to recognize and innovate on this to try and capture that market and drive, kind of private sector solutions that provide this cooling capacity, to buildings all over the world, because that's going to reduce your energy costs, regardless of whether you're low income or kind of a corporate data center or anything else here. And so we see it as a solution that is just early to market right now, but can absolutely be transformative in terms of cooling loads here going forward.
Will we be seeing these coatings or this paint in our society in the next 5 years, 6 years? Is that?
We're incredibly hopeful. We're working along here in the United States. We've got a pilot underway in the southwestern U.S. Alongside a number of other entities, just to prove out that it can work, and the economics will pencil.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You travel the world. You must spend an awful lot of time in airports and on planes. Thank you for doing that. I know it's critical work. You're off to Brazil.
All offset by sustainable aviation fuel, but yes, I do travel.
You're off to Brazil for COP30. What will be your focus for that trip?
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of themes that are super important right now. Certainly, grids everywhere are a critical issue, whether you're talking about data centers or whether you're talking about new cooling loads or whether you're talking about how do we electrify vehicles and others. We need to solve and figure out how do we advance affordable and resilient solutions for grids around the world. And so that's a very important topic. It's the cornerstone of making the energy transition possible. And it's also critical, again, so that people get the reliable power that they're going to need in a world where we're growing our rate of electrification twice as fast as our need for energy, right? So we are moving into a world that is going to just need more cheap electrons. And so that's a big focal point. And you do that, yes, by having, having cheaper, cleaner power supply, but it's also about demand management and efficiency. It's about demand response and how exactly we use things like virtual power plants and distributed generation. It's also about how we build smarter grids and use, kind of AI and some of the capabilities that we have to enhance our overall grids through controls and management, or through using new materials and reconductoring existing rights of way. All of those things are super important. So it's a big topic, and one where we need better policies and better alignment, better markets here globally to drive those. Efficiency, of course, is the big area that RMI keeps championing for the world. That we're wasting over $4.5 trillion a year right now on super inefficient power and energy use, and we can capture that and actually make some of the world's challenges around energy affordability and availability much better by accessing this really cheap source. And right now, the world set a goal to double the rate of energy efficiency here a couple of years ago at COP. We've gone the other direction. We're at half the rate of what we were before. So we've got to lift up our energy efficiency game. And then a third thing that I'll be focused on is this issue of the heavy industry transition that I talked about with shipping, but more broadly, right? A third of our energy globally goes into steel, cement, chemicals, kind of other hard to abate sectors. How do we get those on the right path here to ensure that we've got economic and innovative solutions, substitutes, paths for everyone, and ultimately build, the next generation of infrastructure with materials that are all aligned with a sustainable future.
Yeah. Boy, John, you're really the right guy for the job. I can tell. Thank you for what you're doing. What on earth did you think you were going to do when you were a little kid? I mean, did you ever envision that you would be the CEO of Rocky Mountain Institute, traveling all over the world, involved with this massive global transformation towards sustainable society?
It's not where I started. I started playing with blocks and loving. I had first generation Legos, kind of snapping just square blocks together to try and make things. I always thought I was going to be a designer and a builder. Yeah. And eventually I realized I'm a problem solver, and what I love to do is solve problems. And I'm with RMI. We're taking on one of the biggest challenges out there, right? Of how do we realign and create a sustainable energy future that actually balances all our needs for security and resiliency and affordability. But we're doing it with some panache and some sophistication, some exciting science and real markets, right? And that's what we love to do.
That's awesome. Final question. How do you maintain balance? I heard through the grapevine that you're taking guitar lessons, which I applaud. But what would you say to the question? How do you keep balance in your life to keep your batteries charged?
Well, I certainly, my wife and daughters keep me in balance and in check nonstop here. But I love the mountains. I'm a mountain biker. I'm a skier. I love music. I was a trumpet player for many years and loved to play in salsa bands and things. But I did take up a guitar here as I've spent more time on the road. I have a travel guitar with me that is kind of it's my yoga mat. It's my therapy that I just kind of use at the end of the day to relax and do something completely different and, make a little bit of music. And, I think that's what we all need to do right now is find ways to harmonize and make a little bit of music. And in that quiet, kind of comfort of rhythm and harmony, I think we can all find the energy that we need to make change happen even faster. It is an exciting moment for me. I think the energy transition is happening. It's happening fast, but we all need to play a role in it and can help shape it so that it meets more what everybody needs, right? More effectively.
Well, very, very well put. I love the musical influence coming into our conversation, but well put. Well done, John. Thank you so much for what you're doing at RMI and for all of us as global citizens. And thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Such a pleasure, Ted. Thank you.
That's it. Thanks for listening to Flanagan's Ecologic. We'll see you next time.